Hey guys, so today we're going to take a look at the Bootstrap library. Won't get too deep into it, but kind of want to give you an overview of what the library is, and mainly we're going to use Bootstrap to take advantage of its very convenient methods for creating responsive grids and layouts, and for creating simple navigation elements. What is Bootstrap? Bootstrap is an open source JavaScript framework that was built at Twitter. Um, you've seen it before, without kind of realizing that you've seen it. We'll look at some buttons and sort of drop down styles and stuff, and you'll probably recognize some things as just really common things that are all over the web style wise. The library itself consists of markup, CSS, and JavaScript code, and really the library is just a way to kind of make some really just nice looking page stuff really accessible, right? So instead of styling these things all yourself, you can just kind of call them up by name and things will look like you want them to look. It's a very convenient way to work. Yeah, so let's get into it. First things first, we're going to go to the Bootstrap page, which is just bootstrap or getbootstrap.com. So I'll take you to this big purpley page here, and we'll click over to the Getting Started page and kind of look at some of the just really great things about it right up front. Let's see, if we navigate down here, we can look at the basic template stuff, and this gives you some examples. Uh, First one we'll look at is the grid example. Bootstrap provides, in the Bootstrap CSS, there are predefined styles, predefined classes rather, that you can add to divs or really images or any other kind of markup on your page to uh, respond with the size of your page. So in this case, well, Bootstrap works within a 12 column grid, which we talked a little bit in class, I believe. So here we have, in this first row, we have three 4-column grids, right? 4 times 3 is 12. So it splits neatly into thirds. Next we have 3 unequal columns. The first one's 3, the last one's 3, and the middle one's 6. Again, adds up to 12. 2 columns, an 8 and a 4. So the first one is wide, the second one is narrow. But in each case, we're using the grid to kind of create this this rigid, very pleasing layout, right? Because these units are all uniform, they all kind of line up with one another in a pleasing way. And if we scroll down here a bit, we have some examples of like using nested columns within here. So we have 8 and 4 equals 12. And then here we have, within this 8 column piece, we have 2 6 columns. So this 8 column space becomes 12 at that nested level. So 6 plus 6 is 12. So you can think of this 8 column space as split up into 12 individual units. It's a very convenient way to work. And then really, what does this mean as far as a responsive page goes? If you grab the edge of this and move towards the middle, you can see that these boxes all move around. And there's lots of definitions. This is the syntax for this column-md-8. The MD stands for medium. That means we're working on a medium-sized page. There's definitions for a large screen, for a medium screen, for a small screen, and for an extra small screen. So you can probably imagine the small and extra small generally apply to tablet displays and to mobile phone displays. And let's see, so what else in here? We've got, let's look at a couple more of these templates and you can kind of see some of these common elements. We've talked a little bit about the header. This is a pretty common convention used on lots of sites today. If you squeeze, you notice that header gets smaller and we get what we call the hamburger over here, where the 3 horizontal lines, we have 3 links here which don't display when that header gets small, but rather show up as elements under this drop down here. And there's another example here. We have a good overview of what the buttons look like in Bootstrap. This is probably something you've seen, or at least the style button, and maybe wondered about it. If we were to design these buttons ourselves, we'd have to get pretty verbose with our CSS. We'd say this div is a button and it has a background color of blue. The padding is 8 pixels. The font size is, 18 pixels. It's Arial. The color of the text is white. The div has rounded corners. The rounded corners are 8 pixels rounded or something like that. So as you can imagine, like predefined, writing all of that stuff ourselves rather is it's a lot of work. But when you download a framework, you have access to all of these things that are pre-written. And especially if you begin to use Bootstrap on a regular basis, you just sort of have this stuff in your vocabulary. You know what, you're familiar with them, you know what they're called, you know what you want to access when you need to access it. And it's a quicker way to work and to end up with stuff that you know is going to look good. So if we scroll down here, some more things you'll recognize. Drop-down menus that look pretty familiar with like this separated link style. This color blue is very familiar because it's the default active color in Bootstrap. There's kind of nice styles for alerts and progress bars, lists, panels, tables look really great in Bootstrap. I wonder if there's any tables in the examples here. I don't see any. Yeah, so you guys can click around this a bit if you'd like. Oh, here's a good table example. Tables in HTML tend to look, a little rigid, and you have to go in and do a lot of your own styles. This is, yeah, just a nice, clean, out-of-the-box usage. So let's get into it a bit. First things first, we're going to click over to Aptana and we're going to create a new project. I'm going to pause and do that so I don't fumble through it while we're recording. Alright, so I've got my folder started. I'm going to go to File, File, New from Template, HTML, Transitional Template, and we'll rename this to Index. Going to go ahead and do the things that we always do here. We begin with an index file as well as a JavaScript and a CSS file. JavaScript template, we'll call ours scripts.js, and then a new CSS file called style.css. Yes, we are not very creative. We don't need to be creative. We just want to name them what they are. We don't need to get specific to the project, rather. You wouldn't call it Bootstrap style CSS or Bootstrap script.css. Every file, well, we have a parent name in it, so just name them the same way each time. It kind of keeps it simple. So let's click on over to Bootstrap and go back up to the top of the Getting Started page. And what do we have here? This thing that we should all be pretty familiar with at this point because we use them every week. These are CDN hosted links. So Bootstrap has its own. We are going to pull actually just 2 of these 3. The middle one is an optional theme CSS. It's a set of CSS that maybe kind of customizes the colors of buttons. There's a lot of these out there. You can kind of search around yourself and see if you see one where the buttons look the way that you like them or whatever. We're just going to use the default styles here. So let's copy this over. We'll go into our index page here and we're going to put it in the head of our project. We are also going to, of course, link to our own custom CSS, which is located in the style CSS file. It's not in the folder or anything, so it doesn't get a directory. We do want to put HTTP : at the front of our Bootstrap address. Remember, because we are working off our desktop, we need to make sure that we're pointing at the web. And comment this here, our custom style sheet. And the other thing I'm going to grab will be the minified JavaScript. I'm going to put this at the end of our document, right before the closing body tag, and we're going to load that before we load our own custom script, which is script.js type equals text JavaScript All right, and what are we forgetting here? The other thing that we tend to load every time we start a new project, which is the jQuery library. So let's grab that real quick as well. We'll just go to Google CDN jQuery. This will take us to the Google hosted libraries. And there it is. And remember, anytime we load libraries, we want to load them before we load our own JavaScript. Same with CSS. I don't think that Bootstrap relies on jQuery, but just in case it does, I'm actually going to load that first because I know that jQuery doesn't depend on Bootstrap. Does that make sense? I'm loading jQuery first, then Bootstrap, then our custom JavaScript. Things load in order on our page, and if we were to load, say, our JavaScript and refer to jQuery methods, those wouldn't exist when this gets loaded, so none of those things would work. So we want to make sure that we load jQuery first, Bootstrap second, and JavaScript last. All right, same goes for our style sheets, by the way. Our custom style sheets would overwrite any styles that are here. So say there's a blue button style in the Bootstrap style sheet, but we wanted our buttons to be red. We would define those in our style sheets, and since our custom style sheet comes after the Bootstrap style sheet, it would actually overwrite those styles. This came up in class the other day, and it's good to kind of make that point again to reinforce the idea. All right, great. So we've got our includes written on the page. Let's see what this looks like right now. So I'm going to, I'm working on my own local directory here, so I'm going to put in the address for, let's see, for class. And I have a folder called Bootstrap, and here's what I get. Okay, so first thing we're going to notice here is that this doesn't look like our page usually looks like. The type here is different. And to demonstrate that, what I'm going to do is just real quick, I'm going to comment out the Bootstrap library and show you what it looks like without the Bootstrap CSS. We have this weird serif, I think it's like Times New Roman or something like that it defaults to. Whereas Bootstrap has a different default font. It actually uses Helvetica, which is just a, it's a little more pleasing, right? Okay, so, yeah. Where were we? Helvetica, yes. Okay. So, looking back to our page markup here, the only things that we have on our page right now are just well, it's just the h1 tag, right? So, what I've done is I've put together a folder, which you can download from the lore site. From the discussion page on the lore site. That's what I was looking for. And it contains just a few simple things. We've got 3 images and a little bit of text. The images that I've pulled are just 3 rides from Coney Island because today it's almost summer. So we're going to use this as just kind of some generic content to lay out on our page. And I'm going to pause here and we're going to just start afresh with the new video because I'm bumping up against my 15 minutes. So here we go.